Next up, we have someone who we already saw on stage today, Hense, who is working at Spirit Legal, the company who helps JENTIS quite a lot, I hear, with their products. He is one of Germany's most prolific litigators in data protection and technology law, and he focuses his work on international IT and technology law, data protection, and privacy litigation. And he will now, as almost our very last talk today, talk to us about AI and how the hype for AI will evolve, how this also has impact on data regulations, and if data privacy can be preserved without stifling innovation and growth in this field. Peter, I welcome you on stage.
That's not going to work. Hi, thank you. Yeah, I was and I am delighted by the fact that everyone else already knew what I was going to talk about today, but I didn't, because until this morning I just had the title. And there are different titles on the website and for the announcements. And actually, I took the liberty of discussing with friends and colleagues yesterday and also today about a variety of topics. And I just created basically the presentation from scratch in the last couple of hours. So let's see where that leads. So, dear audience, in a desperate attempt to captivate you, I was seeking the assistance from ChatGPT to craft an introduction for this presentation. I can sense the anticipation among you. No, very not. I did not actually pursue that path. It's super boring to cite ChatGPT stuff. So just mentioning, it seems that some of you were put to sleep by just mentioning ChatGPT. So here we go again. Another one of those wannabe clowns who use AI as a cover for their lack of substance in their work or ideas. So, all right, now that we have passed this awkward moment, let's get started. That's to ensure that you can recognize me in the photo. I have dressed very similarly. I'm Peter, I'm tech lawyer by choice, litigator by default, and with insights into machine learning and AI from extracurricular activities that have nothing to do with my job as a lawyer. As a law firm, my team, especially my team, I don't contribute much to that, but my team, we operate on the front lines of justice. We operate both as attackers and defenders, and we thoroughly enjoy this. We offer comprehensive assistance, of course, everyone does, all lawyers do, to companies. We specialize in privacy engineering. Fewer law firms do that, and the implementation of compliance firewalls. Firewalls sound so much cooler than compliance management systems, so I chose this term for the sake of this presentation. So, however, we also represent clients who take the offensive when it is necessary, of course, and justified in order to restore fair competition or enforce contractual commitments. And dear online marketers, ad techers, have you ever taken a closer look at the IAB standard terms? No? Yes? Well, you should in the future, even more than before. So we are often asked whether it is possible to be both litigators and advisors, and our response is to effectively combat and extinguish fires, one must possess the knowledge of how they ignite. It's Groundhog Day again. No, it's not your 5th birthday, GDPR. You're 7 years old. And you were born on May 4th, 2016. But, who cares? Happy birthday anyway. A heartfelt thank you goes to Neub here in Vienna, to Panopticon in Warstein, to the ICCL in Ireland and Quadrature du Net in France, for their unwavering dedication and commitment in taking GDPR seriously while no one else did. You had hope. Other players, bigger players, they simulated interest. They feigned outrage over minor details and pretended to comply with GDPR, especially in the data, in the marketing, or ad tech sectors. There were honest players, of course, there are honest players. But the bad apples have ruined the salad for everyone else. As witnessed during yesterday's panel discussion, the earlier one, I think, even though I arrived late, so I'm not sure, I think one of the panels here, we saw this persistent belief that from 2018, basically, that the game-changing GDPR would revolutionize the business landscape. That has proven to be largely unfounded, at least in this industry here. In reality, the game has remained disappointingly stagnant for the past 5 years. It was as if the panelists yesterday could have been transported straight from 2018, reciting the same old mantra. Get your processes right, appoint coordinators, raise awareness, do your effing ROPAs, and oh, don't forget the ever-repeated advice. Just get started, finally, but this time, pretty please. It is truly astonishing that it took some players a whole half-decade to hire a handful of privacy experts only to then attempt to work around them and to undermine their expertise or even involve them in their questionable practices. It is now high time for these players to acknowledge their responsibilities and finally start their efforts towards achieving compliance. Why? The future is here. Very generic wording, but you'll see where that leads in a second. Dear dark side of ad tech and marketing, while you were busy for 5 years finding ways to evade regulations, developing increasingly sophisticated dark patterns to deceive users into clicking cookie banners that you then dare to label as informed consent, after years of trickery and betrayal, others have emerged with their own approaches that will continue to haunt you for the rest of your professional lives. The noose around the neck of the bad apples is tightening. Based on our own very recent experiences over the last 12 months in court, I must emphasize that parts of the industry are facing a much darker future than predicted. And this requires a shift in thinking to avoid running headfirst into a wall for some, if they recognize the threat. We successfully, as lawyers, I mean, there are clients too, but we as lawyers, we do all the work, right? So we successfully compelled Google into including a reject all button on the first layer of all of their cookie notices. We have achieved court rulings that say and state that tracking ads via Google Click IDs constitutes a violation of GDPR if informed consent cannot be proven, which neither Google nor anyone else in this room or in this world has been able to do so far due to their lack of transparency. Also, 3, TCF. TCF is dead, but also long live TCF, the widespread standard for ad auctions, which was evidently unlawful from the beginning when it was developed, has been decisively defeated in court in its most recent version. We ourselves recently implemented a significantly improved version of the TCF 2.0, demonstrating that with some creativity, remarkable achievements can be made in the realm of data protection and marketing. My predictions based on the data available to me today, because it's all about predictions today. 1, the era of deceptive dark patterns is reaching its end. 2, tracking without explicit consent and informed consent, two different things, is no longer tolerated. Shady ad tech tools are being cast aside and left behind, and it is high time to embrace a resolute dedication to privacy. I see smiles all around, especially from our experienced colleagues comfortably seated. Haven't you heard a similar story just 5 years ago? The world of ad tech is coming to an end, right? That's true, but this time we're not talking about small things like GDPR. The European Union and the Court of Justice of the European Union have very recently given us powerful tools to build back better. That's what these numbers here on this slide are about. Google it or Bing AI it if that sparks joy for you. Now, there are consequences for violating people's rights to privacy. And Europe is leading the way in making sure of that. Investors are eager to support legal actions. Illegal tracking as a business model might seem profitable, but no longer for you, dear shady trackers. It becomes a liability on your financial balance sheets. On the other hand, there are individuals, there are corporations like hunters who are convincing users to join lawsuits against data brokers and ad tech companies who are engaged in deceptive practices. And there's more. In a few months, a great new feature called collective consumer redress will be introduced all across Europe. It's like the US class actions, where consumers can come together to seek justice, but in European, so more options, more players, more languages, more risk. But hey, honestly, wishful thinking, I'm just joking about all of that. Nothing serious is going to happen in the next 5 years. You're safe here in this field, in this room. Don't worry and don't look up. But now for something completely different. AI has become a hot topic of conversations these days. People on Tinder are chatting about AI and ChatGPT. It's on everyone's lips, including mine. Even during a casual dinner yesterday here, we could have focused on more pleasant topics, lighter subjects, more charming discussions, but we found ourselves compelled to bring up the subject of large language models. Of course, what else would we talk about? But what exactly is AI currently? Will it take control over the world? And on a smaller scale, is my job safe? Is yours? I don't know. I remember my mom always saying, Peter, learn something that makes the world a better place and something that makes you happy. And now I'm working as a lawyer. The most unhappy profession of all. Would I have been better off as a marketer? I wouldn't bet on it. But let's not panic. The truth is nobody really knows what AI actually means and what it is beyond a trendy term. We see that on the slide here. For those who are interested in learning more about it, I suggest reading a book called AI, A Guide for Thinking Humans, written by an actual person, Melanie Mitchell. She's the author. Not a single presentation should go by without mentioning this hilarious statement by Matt Veloso from Microsoft. And if we're thinking about that, still there are people out there saying that like a user interface like ChatGPT, that is AI. No, it's still a simple interface. To understand what is behind AI and what it could do, we would have to go deeper into the topic, even though, I mean, time is running out. So, we're talking about generative AI when we're talking about large language models and how they apply. But AI is much more. AI is, sorry, forgot that one. It was not interconnected, I'm sorry. So some more terminology here. So we have a phenomenon with generative AI. It is part of artificial intelligence, but there is discriminative intelligence, discriminative machine learning, there's generative machine learning. We have neural networks. We have deep learning as a method. And then there are transformers. What are transformers? Are they fancy comic things? No, transformers are the new era of artificial intelligence. I'm not going to bore you with knowledge of this original paper from Google, which was basically at the foundation of all those large language models that we're hearing so much about it. You can bore yourself by reading this paper. There's also a resource page on the Google website that has GIFs, animated GIFs on it. So that's much fancier. Or you could try and jump to the much easier to comprehend paper. It is called for ChatGPT Explained for non-technical people. So if you want to cut corners, go read that other paper here. It's for dummies like me, so that they feel less dumb when talking to machine learning experts. But even though I'm not here to talk about technology, machine learning, and the large language models, there is one thing, and I feel compelled to clarify a common misconception about language models, particularly the notion that these models are flawed or prone to hallucinations. This is not accurate. Jan LeCun, he's one of the leading figures in this field of artificial intelligence. He's the head of AI at Meta. They are doing some serious work there, not just the metaverse and stuff. He has explained it far better than I could. So whenever people talk about hallucinations with large language models, it is not true. It's not an error. It's what these models are designed to do. There are no hallucinations. These models work just fine because they are autoregressive models. And you can see the big pie chart here in the middle with the tree of all possible token sequences and the tree of correct answers. I'm trying to explain that I hope, in an understandable way. Imagine you're trying to predict tomorrow's temperature. If you're using an autoregressive model, you'd base your predictions of tomorrow's temperature mainly on the temperature of today, of yesterday, the day before yesterday, and so on. The idea is that past values have an impact on future ones. I remember that we have heard about predictions and modeling already today. In the context of large language models, autoregressive refers to how these models generate sentences, meaning, knowledge. Basically, an autoregressive model creates a sentence one word at a time, with each new word being chosen based on all the words that the model itself has already generated before it. So if you have the sentence, if you want to have a sentence created once upon a time, it is very clear that the next words are going to be generated based on the previous content. Autoregressive means the model uses its own previous outputs as input for future predictions. And that's why Jan LeCun says these autoregressive large language models, and it's a very important information, they are doomed. They have no sensory grounding in the real world. They have come to an end. So even before we fully understood the power of AI, maybe that ship has already sailed. That's just something you, I think, should consider when talking about throwing away your business ideas in the fear of being substituted by AI. But everything comes at a price, and that price is quite high. Large language models and the beautiful picture-generating diffusion models, they are based on books and articles and pictures and drawings that other people made 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago, but also 50 or 10 years ago. They are based on huge chunks of data. So the creators of those models, they basically stole all of that. They repurposed it, and now they are trying to make money from it. The story of humanity is full of surprises, and currently they are negotiating with governments all around the world for forced licensing. The UK has even considered to force license all of the creative artwork that has ever been generated in the UK. They didn't go through with this plan, but it's still being considered. But since you are not working in a creative industry, don't worry, nobody's going to steal your weekly campaign performance spreadsheets. I think so, at least. Let's talk about regulation and what that would mean and could mean for marketers. Regulation of AI is not something the European Union just invented. It is already a global trend. Just a couple of days ago, there has been, I think, the 15th AI state law in the US. It's still a bill, not a law, sorry. It's a bill, like a proposal. But there are so many laws, sectoral laws, verticals that are being regulated. New York, I think were the first in 2017, and now even China has followed suit. So Chinese regulations, they are already there. So the EU is even late to the party. But the approach of the AI Act and why that matters becomes obvious in the next slides. The AI Act has an interesting structure. It is structured as if you were importing raw iron from Africa through ports in the UK and then finally to some company maybe in Germany, in Austria, wherever you need it, raw material. You have different roles that are being addressed in the AI Act. The producer, the manufacturer basically, the importer, the user, but you should not confound the user of the AI Act, which is still a business or an institution, with the end user. So all of this is basically not very helpful. That's one of the strongest points where people criticize the AI Act. But still, there are a couple of titles in the AI Act that are very relevant for the marketing and ad tech field. Title 3 mainly, high-risk systems, and other titles too, of course, because of the personalized advertising. Why would that be a problem? Because look at currently we're talking about the AI Act as a draft, still Parliament draft. There will be negotiations, there will be a trilogue following, but the AI Act will come into force at least in about 24 months, so basically 2025. What is an AI system? It is a worldwide agreed definition by the OECD and the NIST, the National Institute for Standards and Technology in the US, and it is a very broad definition. So think about it. What should we do with Google Analytics 4? And the future is predictive, using customer data, applying it to the Google Analytics system that you license from Google. Is that an AI system? Yeah, I mean, one could argue so. It is very easily, can fall very easily under this definition. And because it's a set of human-defined objectives, it makes predictions, recommendations, decisions influencing real or virtual environments. It's a very broad definition, and the only exception comes in one of the recitals. Recitals are basically like an explanation of the law. There they are nice, and they say like simple software does not fall under the definition. But I wouldn't call Google Analytics or any other type of software, type of system, simple software here. So, and I picked one very important article from the AI Act, maybe the most important article of all, at least if we're talking about data and marketing, to show you that it will have a huge impact on marketing. So the challenges that you and the industry will face in the future, they come from Article 10, because it says you're training data sets. If you want to deploy your own models, train an existing model with your own data so that you can enjoy the inferences from proprietary models. Because currently we're not talking about GPT anymore, we're talking about Hugging Face and Hugging AI and proprietary large language models that any marketing firm or any e-commerce company can use and train by themselves. The data for that, the data sets, have to be representative, appropriately vetted for errors, as complete as possible in the view of the intended purpose. So that's a lot. Marketing and AI, two realms that converge to combine the best of both worlds. Large language models would have been proven to struggle with logic and mathematics. They do have issues there. And marketing that is prone to ad fraud and invisible factors. They both merge here. But which of the data that you have, which data that e-commerce companies have, can be used without risk? From a legal perspective, unfortunately, you cannot launder your illegally obtained data, the dark pattern generated data, and train your model with it, because there is no way to make that legally compliant. But judging on the JENTIS presentation earlier, you may not have to rely on old data. Article 10 is one example of how the AI Act is going to influence the world of marketing if someone still wants to use AI as a tool, as a helper, as a chatbot, as an assistant. So before diving into your AI journey, ask yourself the following question. What is your strategy for handling data? What is your strategy for achieving autonomy from third-party data? And how do you plan to survive the next 5 years? Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? I'm open for it.
Thank you, Peter Hense. So, like he just asked you, does anyone have any questions? Yes, there is one. It's really dark down there, huh?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. It was great to hear a lawyer explaining the facts. Well, my name is Milena Mora. I am from Ecuador. I haven't read the AI Act, actually, but a question that has been haunting me since I started my journey in the data protection field, data privacy field. What about data inferences or inference data? Is the AI Act actually protecting it as personal data, or is it still not considered as that? Because since I read the GDPR, and also I guess it was the Spanish DPA that actually said that inference data cannot be object to the right of portability. I don't know if maybe the AI Act is actually treating inferences as personal data, or how it is handling it.
Cool, thank you. Great question. The AI Act does not deal with the data as such. GDPR remains untouched and has to be complied with irrespective of the AI Act. The AI Act, you should consider it's a product safety regulation. That's why it's so disappointing, and that's why I could just find one article that is interesting for marketing. The rest is about like procedures, standardization, harmonization, and registration of your product. Registered is with one authority and another authority, so that's really, really boring. The problem comes with basically with the certification of these models, the models you want to deploy. But back to your first question, inferences. Inferences, there was a widely accepted and rejoiced paper in the privacy field from a Viennese professor. She's in Oxford currently, Sandra Wachter, and it was called A Right to Reasonable Inferences. It was a very influential paper. It's a great paper. In the final stage, it had like something about 130 pages. But you can also like listen to Sandra's presentations or lectures on YouTube. It's a bit more concise. So basically, the CJEU cleared this question this year. So inferences are personal data. Why wouldn't they be? So if you say like you're like the data that you are currently in Vienna, and that's an example that also Sandra used. If someone has your geolocation and your gender, the inference could be you like coffee because you're in Vienna and like it's a thing in Vienna to like coffee, but maybe you don't like coffee, so that inference is wrong. So that's personal data. Any inference based on you or attributed to you is personal data. So that's like Österreichische Post, one of the first decisions, and also other decisions by the Austrian Datenschutzbehörde. They all said that, like, inferences, personal data, protected as if it were real data. Falls under the scope of GDPR.
All right. We have time for one last question, if there is one. For me, it would be very, very interested actually how you see, like, not related now to the talk, but because you're so inspiring looking into the future, what is your take on the future of advertising in all of this field? If you can sum it up in like 2 or 3 sentences.
Well, I wouldn't bet that we will see traditional advertising anymore in 10 years from now. I think advertising as something that you can, that you will consume visually while browsing the web, that's going to be over, because we will have all of these fancy assistants at every point of the chain of consummation. And these assistants that are much smarter than we are, trained on our everyday lives, they will be trained to make decisions for us. So everything, what we buy, the contracts that we conclude, changes in behavior, like, yeah, all of that. I think traditional advertising is actually a thing of the past. Sorry.
So new jobs are rising for all of us then.
Yeah, more profits for big tech.
Ooh.
About jobs, I'm not so sure.
All right. Peter Hense, thank you so much.
Thank you.